Okay, we're recording. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I turned the presentation over to Jennifer, and in the process of doing that, you may have lost your chat window. If you could please, it would be easier for me to monitor for questions using the chat window. So I know that we have the option for the Q&A panel, but because there are so many of you, and we hope that we'll be able to get to a lot of your questions, it would be a lot easier if we stuck with the chat panel. So, so if you could do that, please. And now to officially get into the webinar, thank you for joining us today for Demystifying the Apple iPad for Special Education. In this webinar, Jennifer Edge-Savage, who is an occupational therapist, an assistive technology consultant, and a faculty member at Simmons College, will take you through, as you know, the sometimes confusing terrain of available iPad apps for special education. So tomorrow, we are recording the webinar, and so watch for an email from me tomorrow with a link to the recording, and so you can watch the webinar again if you like, or feel free to share with your colleagues. The email will also contain a link to resources that we go over in this webinar, including Jennifer's presentation, which you can see now. Again, we do welcome your questions. Please use the chat panel. Try to avoid using the Q&A panel, just for simplicity's sake for me. And I just want to make an additional note about the questions. When you registered, lots of you made comments and asked questions, and we loved reading them. But because there are so many apps available, all of you asked so many questions, we're just not going to be able to cover all of them during our limited time together. But all is not lost. Jennifer will either answer your question during the webinar as part of her presentation, or the dozens of links that she's provided in her presentation will give you a place to start to find your specific app that you're looking for. And as I said, Jennifer's presentation will be made available to you for downloading. So Jennifer, let's get started.
Hi, folks. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted that we have such a big crowd and a little nervous, but I'm looking forward to this with you folks. So as Debbie let you know, we're going to try to cover a lot within an hour. I took a look at everybody's questions before today, and I think we have something for everybody. What this session is not is a specific app smackdown, looking at app after app after app. What it is really thinking about iPads in general in special education and really laying some breadcrumbs for you to look at some resources to help you think about and find the tools that you're looking for. And we will certainly share with each other, and I'm happy to share my own kind of maybe some of my favorite tools that I'm using. But what we hope to do in this quick hour is really give a comprehensive overview of what's possible with the iPad and the tools you might need as educators to have in your tool belt and the resources that you might handy so that you can feel a little more confident in using the iPad with your students. Now, for those of you who are just in, some of you were on earlier, what I mentioned is, does everybody see my PowerPoint screen right now? It says Demystifying the Apple iPad. Thank you. Just one yes helps me out. Great. So what you'll notice at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen is a little QR code. If you are a QR code kind of person, and I'm starting to really fall in love with these little tools for using in classrooms, go ahead and grab your QR reader, and that is a link to all of the resources that I'm sharing. I also have a live link that we can share. This PowerPoint and a lot of the handouts and resources, I've posted them all into my Edmodo folder and have shared them with you so that you can access them.
Jennifer, can I interrupt for a moment? It's Debbie.
Go ahead.
I neglected to mention that because we expect so many questions, Jennifer has graciously agreed to stay an extra half hour to answer those questions. So at 3 o'clock when the webinar ends, we will extend it to until 3:30 to answer questions that come. And those of you who have to leave, we will record that Q&A session so you can catch up with that at a later date. Thank you, Jennifer.
So one of the things I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to post to the chat. Why don't I post to the chat a link to the resources, because folks kind of want to make sure they have everything they're looking for. So I want to make sure in case anybody has to leave early, I'm going to post a link for you now, okay? So everybody has a link now to all of the resources that we're going to be sharing today. I'll let go. Everybody get it? Excellent. And don't worry, for those who are wondering what that QR code I was going on about, we're going to talk about that today too. We hope. So really, we're going to buckle up a little bit and start talking about this. So I'm going to unpause my screen so you can see everything. So welcome again, everyone. Keep up with the chat. I'm sure there are folks out there who have lots of ideas to share with all of us. So as we're talking about iPads and education, folks probably with more experience than me, less experience than me, it doesn't matter. These tools are everywhere, and we need to think about how we're going to use them and how to use them thoughtfully with our students. So why are we even talking about iPads in special education? Ease of use, mobility, and flexibility to really provide multiple means of representation of information for our kids, to help them express what they know, and really what we've seen is engage them. How's everybody? I got a note that somebody's not seeing the visual. Can you all see it now? Send me a quick note in chat that, yep, you can. Great. Thanks, everyone. Every so often in this WebEx kind of environment, I'm just going to check in and make sure that I'm not talking to a blank screen and that you're with me. Thanks, everyone. So back to thinking about iPads and education, we're thinking about engaging all learners. For those of you who, like me, have been involved in assistive technology for a long time, one of the issues sometimes with assistive technology is that kind of stigma that sometimes happens, and it really is an art to integrating our tools and to helping our students engage with the variety of assistive technology tools that we need, and our lives become easier and easier as assistive technology professionals as more of these tools are widely accepted in the mainstream. Thanks, folks. I'm seeing some familiar names out there. Hi, everybody. So the cool factor is kind of neat with the iPad. And there are certainly lots of incredible devices hot on the heels on the iPad, seeing what this is doing in education. And no doubt there will be future webinars talking about some of those other tools. Really excited to start thinking about some Android devices and Chromebooks. It's getting very exciting out there, isn't it? So as we think about more specifically iPads today, one of the things that makes iPads one of my favorite tools or go-to tools is the built-in universal accessibility options. And for those who have been paying attention, OS 7 was released within the last month, and it's incredible, some of the new tools that they built in to make sure that that iPad is accessible to the widest amount of users possible. What's also good to think about, we think about this iPad as this great touch screen, but what we forget is some of our students still can't maybe access the touch screen as it was designed, and they need to access some of the accessibility options. And just like in the paper world and the non-digital world, there's lots of styluses and mounts and different tools that we might use. And all of those types of tools are becoming more and more available for use iPad as well. So as an OT, I was always thinking about using universal cuffs and making sure that utensils and pens and pencils were accessible to my students. The same is true for the iPad. There's an incredible variety of styluses and other accessories that you can use to make sure that the iPad is safe as possible and also that it can be accessed. Not everybody can use that swipe with their fingers. Another exciting thing about the iPad and the whole idea of iBooks and iBooks Author is that textbooks are changing. Our students are growing up being used to being able to click on something that's blue highlighted and know that's a link to something else, being able to save an image, being able to enlarge an image that they want to see. So textbooks are coming that way too and becoming more and more multimedia. So the iPad is one of those incredible tools that's just really designed to really help transform education as we start rethinking how we're going to deliver information for our students and how we're going to get them involved. So here's a scary thing. I saw a lot of folks ask questions about, I want the magical bullet app to do this for my students with this. fill in the blank. There are over 40,000 educational apps available in the App Store, and there are over 760,000 apps overall. At this time last year, the first time I presented this presentation for the folks at Cambium Learning Technologies, the number was 260,000. So it's more than doubled in a year the number of apps that are available now for us. So it's a little dizzying. And if you're feeling overwhelmed with where to find the right app, you're not alone. But what's exciting is to just you're not alone, you have support. It's exciting to just keep moving forward, collect some of the resources that may help you on your way to using the iPad with your students, and really think about the potential that we have here to transform learning for our students. So the way I've decided to kind of go along with this webinar, I'm going to go through some resources, and it's more text-heavy than I ever want it to be, but I want to make sure that I support different types of learners, and for those who really like to see kind of the whole picture and would like to be able to have this for notes afterwards, I've provided the information in these slides, and I'll talk to many of the points throughout the slides that we go through. Towards the end of the session, I'm going to, especially for folks who might be newer to using iPads, I'm going to transfer over and I'm going to project my iPad onto the screen. So you'll see my iPad. You could be playing along with your iPad all along, certainly, but I'll project my iPad and go over some of the new features and some of the accessibility features, and make sure I share some of the immediate accessibility features that every time I walk into school, I grab an iPad and make sure they're on, and teach those around me how to do it for themselves after I leave. So we'll take a look at that, but I'll save that for the last kind of 15 minutes of the session, if that's okay with everybody. So we won't waste time going back and forth too often. So some of the exciting things, though, for operating system, some of the things you might find when you're supporting your teachers, folks are getting these one-to-one initiatives for iPads. Some folks are getting, a card of maybe 10 or 20 iPads. But we assume everybody is comfortable with and knows how to use it. I found it really helpful to have kind of after-school sessions or coffee groups in the morning with my teachers to kind of go over and have opportunities for folks to ask questions, explore, and make sure they understand some of the basic kind of popular features of the tool so that they're comfortable with it. Be really careful about making assumptions as everybody's comfortable with these devices. It's just not the reality. That being said, I have a 3-year-old who's very comfortable playing with my iPad, and hopefully she hasn't wreaked any havoc on it for us today. And a common question, this came up just this morning. Somebody was asking about where do I plug in the USB to my iPad. If you haven't gotten your hands on an iPad, be sure to do so. Go visit one of those Apple stores if they're local, or Best Buy, or Target, or Walmart. They all sell these devices, and take a look. There is no USB port. The iPad has taken advantage of kind of cloud storage and the technology that we can have everything available in a central location, and we can access our files, whether it's via the cloud, via Dropbox, via Google Drive, pull things down from websites, store them, and have access to them without being tethered by a wire. Some of the new accessibility features that came along, and we'll be looking at actually probably all of them as we go through the session, making sure that folks know about VoiceOver, which is an incredible tool for users who are blind or with vision impairment. And what's been really smart as the past year, we've been hijacking VoiceOver for our users who are switch users and need access to the iPad. And with iOS 7, they came out and they really transformed things. It's a game changer. With the new iOS for iDevices, they have built-in switch accessibility for the iPad, which is pretty amazing. So we'll take a little closer look at that as well. Since we are focusing today on thinking about our students with special needs. I love, there's always these, there's an app for that. It's, as I said, it's dizzying. Communication apps, AAC apps, there's incredible note-taking apps. There's handwriting practice apps, apps for math, for reading support. There are text-to-speech apps built into the iOS as text-to-speech as well. There are presentation apps. What I think are the most powerful apps are those creativity apps that are open-ended that I can transform to use for any curriculum area. It's not always that you need to look for the app for this subject. Sometimes a little handful of really core multi-purpose apps can serve you really well. So we know there's gazillions and gazillions of apps. Thousands and thousands of them for us to look through. So where do we begin? One of the things that's become really popular at some of the schools around the country, and I'm sure beyond, is having an appy hour. So sometimes there might be an appy hour for educators to share a new app that they found, something that they've tried with their students, things that are working, things that are not working, and have a chance to share with each other. What's become really clear when we're trying to tackle so many different tools for education, and perhaps tools that our schools are not quite ready for, and perhaps tools that Apple quite didn't conceive on how deeply we could embed and use some of these tools in education, we're doing a little bit of building the plane while flying it as we figure this out. So we really need the village. We really need our professional learning networks to support us, navigate through some of this. So I swore I wouldn't talk about all my favorite apps, but I have one. So as you're trying to figure out some of these apps, and budgets are always concerned, even though those, $2, $3, $4, $200 from some special education apps add up. So my favorite app is Apps Gone Free. If you don't know about Apps Gone Free, it is a free app that gives you a daily announcement of the apps that are on special or free for the day. So it's a great way to start building up your tools and start being able to trial and explore things before you go and start and get things in bulk for your students. There's been some great apps this month in particular because it's been Learning Disabilities Awareness Month. Some great apps have gone free recently. So that's the one app I say. If you're going to download something, this is a great one to build up the tools in your tool belt.
Here it is. I don't want to use all my minutes, though, and I don't know how to put it on speaker.
I'm going to, such a big group. Thank you so much, Debbie, for helping everybody get muted. I have no doubt we'll have some more interruptions like that. It's okay, folks. We'll work through. So as we talk about apps, the reality is this isn't just about the tool. There is no magic bullet app that's going to solve everything. There isn't the app for autism, the app for learning disabilities, the app for this. Like any technology, it's often only as powerful as the creativity of the user behind it and their perseverance in using the technology to support their students and carefully crafting these tools into the curriculum to support your students. And as individuals, we start using the apps that are really important to us and help them to do something that maybe we struggled with that we could do in a way we just couldn't conceive of off of the device. So we still need to be thinking about the student or the curriculum, the goal. What's the task the student needs to do? And there are gazillions of apps out there, and there are wonderful resources that we'll explore a little bit today and that you can explore further later on your own. But it still goes back to I come from a assistive psychology background. I always go back to Joy Zabella's SET framework and think about carefully, who's my student, what are their needs, what are the barriers to learning, what's available in the environment, how can I make the most of the tools that are available, what are the tools I must include, and what are the tasks, and that tool comes last. So just pulling in the app is almost like thinking like just because you have a hammer, everything is a nail kind of analogy. We really want to think carefully, how are you going to use them? What the trouble with some apps is they're so inexpensive or they're free, and we just think they'll solve everything. You know what? Sometimes they kind of do, it seems. There's some pretty incredible free apps out there, but keep connecting it to your curriculum, keep connecting it to your student. One of the things that have popped up that have been really helpful is some folks have really been thinking about, well, what is important in an app? And start developing app rubrics. So if you at your school or your team are trying to figure out what apps to include or what apps to purchase, or you're trialing and exploring apps, there's some great rubrics that have been created, and I've provided these links for you to explore. I've also actually provided all of these resources in that Edmodo resource folder that I shared with everyone. Whether you use them as is, modify them for yourself with permission of the author, make them work for you, or develop your own for your school, you might want to really be thinking about a little more carefully about the tool that you're going to purchase. The same way you would perhaps, especially when you're thinking about district-wide type of deployment of an app. So as cool as the apps are, and as cool as this device is, we do need to sometimes take a step back and make sure we're thinking clearly about what we're trying to do. So, trying to navigate. One of the neat things that's happened in the past year since I last delivered this is Apple's really started organizing their app store. And what I love is they have a special education section. They also have a resources for teachers section, so apps for teachers. So what I might do is I'm going to go over, I'm going to explore this resource with you a little so you can see. Because there are a lot of folks who are asking for very specific kind of app resources. I'm not going to have the answers for 1,600 people in one one-hour session, but what I hope I will be able to do is point you in the right direction. Can everybody now see I've moved out of PowerPoint? Did that transition okay? Can you all see that I've moved to Firefox now? You should be seeing my web browser. Thanks, Michael.
Yes,
great.
You can see it, Jennifer.
So this is a great resource. What I like about going back to Apple and going to the App Store is that we can look at reviews, too, from folks. So Apple has their own page thinking about education and specifically iPads and apps and books and all of that when we think about using this device in education. The Apple folks and the Apple Distinguished Educators team are incredible and keep building resources for us to help figure this out. Pretty amazing, huh? So what I love is I can view all the education collections of apps. I can browse apps by subject and grade level now. I can go to the special education app collection. I can explore apps for teachers. So what I'm going to do, let's take a look at what the special education app collection looks like. It's going to launch iTunes for you and pull up the store. So when you're not quite sure where to begin, here's one resource. Now, Apple doesn't necessarily create the apps that you're thinking about for special education. So these are made by third-party providers, and they're for sale through the App Store, and they're going to be reviewed so you can take a look at them. So you're looking for apps for communication. There's a whole long section and list of apps available for communication. I see some favorites there, AbiliPad, ProQuo to Go, TapSpeak, so many great things. You're looking at emotional development and maybe kind of social skills stories and other tools. There's some great apps featured there. If you're looking for apps to support vision and hearing, language development, literacy and learning, the folks at Clicker just released some incredible apps that close in the gap too. Clicker Books is a beautiful tool. There's lots of great tools here. Oh, there's Bookshare's Read to Go. So some familiar tools there for us to support our students. Getting really popular now as more and more teachers are armed with iPads are different tools for behavior tracking, for organizing yourself, for keeping track of IEP goals and collecting data is a whole new area that's really exploding with apps too. So this, just the Apple Store, whether you knew it or not now, is a pretty great resource. I got to know from someone not seeing everything. Is it reviewing okay? All right.
If people are having trouble, if they're not seeing Jennifer's desktop, go down to the bottom of the taskbar at the bottom of your screen, at the bottom of your monitor, and look for the blue and green ball, and click on that. That might help.
Okay.
It should help. Thank you.
So resources. So like I said at the beginning, what I hope I'm doing is laying some breadcrumbs for you to follow to resources that can really help you explore and build your own professional development in tackling this. Some of these things, some of you may know already. Hopefully everybody finds something that's new. So here's what I've done. We are not going to look at all of these links. I'm going to look at a couple of them for special education. But there are some great education resources, some great special education resources. So I've shared what I think are the top 10 kind of links in these areas to try to figure out and explore apps. So you have these links, you have these resources to explore. So think about the educational organizations that you follow or belong to, I know one of my favorite go-to places is ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education. They have incredible resources and special interest groups. So they have a mobile learning special interest group. They have a special education technology special interest group. There are great resources, ASHA, AOTA, your professional organizations, no doubt, have some sort of site or tools to reference or provide free webinars to help figure some of this out. You're not alone. A lot of folks are thinking about this now. So I'm sharing some of my favorite kind of go-to places. The reality is this is too big for any one of us to know all the information in one place. Although I think I'm a fan of Luis Perez and James Farrell. They might know everything, but there's just a big field. And there are great folks out there working really hard and sharing. Okay, so I'm going to visit a couple of these. I've already opened them up in my browser, but there are great wiki spaces being created from organizations, from individuals. There are incredible blogs to follow, in addition to those kind of organizational types of resources that are available. And another favorite of mine is the Quiet listserv is one of my go-to places when I have questions about using a particular app and what folks' real-life experiences are with the app, as well as any assistive technology tool. But certainly using iPads and apps are at the forefront right now in everybody's mind. They are really taking it over. There's so much that we can do with these tools. So I'm going to jump over and share a little bit. So another great resource, these are from the folks in Arizona. Great folks on applications for special education populations. What I really love about them, another great resource, Southwest Human Development. Those folks are amazing, and they have a great resource for organizing their apps. And what I really love about them, too, is if you click on any of their links, they're not just listing apps. They're talking about them. They're sharing what the value is of them. They're talking about who it's for and what's the purpose. So it's more than just, hey, this is a great app and it was under the list for apps for AAC. They're going to give you pros and cons, talk about updates, and really share. So I love these types of resources where you can get some kind of information from folks who have some real-world experience with the apps. Another great resource is parent resources, too. So can show and look at all of the apps. I'm going to jump through all of the resources. This one just came up on the Quiet listserv today, and I added it to your resource list in Edmodo. Those folks in Georgia's Assistive Technology Project keep growing, keep transforming, and they even have a Tools for Life site and an app finder. So you can search by a category, by a price, what device are you thinking about, and I love that they're including the other devices available for our students. So yet another resource for you that's free to help you in your thinking, so you're not alone. Another favorite for my students with, I'm going to grab that. For my students with special needs is the folks at Spectronics out in Australia. Once again, they have a really nice resource list organized by kind of skill area and lots of information about its accessibility and its usefulness in the classroom. Okay, and if you find an app you're interested in, you can always go back to the App Store too and see if there's any reviews on it and get a take on what other people are doing with it. So we could spend forever going through those resources. So like I said, I've given you some breadcrumbs. This is another one of the breadcrumbs I laid for you in your resources is AppleViz. This is a great place for looking for apps. This is managed by folks with visual impairment, and they are testing out the apps and letting you know what apps are available for voiceover users. So basically, what apps are accessible for the blind. So another great resource, OTs with apps. There's some colleagues in the audience today. the OTs and apps folks doing some pretty great things about thinking about apps for our students too. It's pretty exciting, and they do a great job really looking at some of the peripheral accessibility devices too. So another great resources. And another one I'm going to look for, and look at, see, common people, if you just Google, this was a common question that came up, apps for autism, and Google, look at all the resources that you can, over 30 million hits, okay? So there are lots of resources out there to start thinking through, and as you get connected to some of these resources and follow folks you like via their blogs or via listserv or following their wiki space, you'll start building your professional network. I know I keep getting back to this, but I find it so important as we try to figure this out together to make this work for our students. And another favorite for students with more significant special needs is the Apps for Stages website or wiki space. Madame Pugliese and the team at Simmons College have really been wrapping their brains around the Stages framework and fitting in apps, and they use incredible student labor to actually look at apps and review them and organize them by developmental stages and functional type stages. So they're reviewed, you're given the link, and get information. So once again, you have great resources out there. So I'm going to stop because you had so many questions for different types of apps to look for. I'm hoping I provided a nice variety of tools for you to follow and kind of explore for what you're looking for, what your personal needs might be. Fair enough? All right, let's get back, and I'll jump into my PowerPoint for a little bit too. So other things, some of the common questions that come up, and my own group locally here in Massachusetts, we're organizing after school kind of 2-hour gathering and open house and tech share to really think about app management and deployment, which is a big issue. Apple itself provides incredible resources to look through and think about, and they've reorganized their website and redone some of their materials, and they're much easier to figure out and explore. So big kind of basic licensing issue things, and especially for folks who are really new. For your personal use, you're expecting, when you purchase your app, whether you download it through iTunes or you purchase it directly onto your device and it all syncs up with your iTunes account and syncs with your other devices, the expectation is you purchase it once, you can use on as many little Apple devices that you purchase. That makes them very happy. You've purchased all the hardware. You can certainly have access to the app software on any of your devices. For educational use, it doesn't work like that. You need to really be specifically buying a license for the device. You can have multiple users of that device. If you have a dedicated device for a student with their own type of account that they're downloading for, you might think of more of that as a personal use type of account, the same you would with typical software that you install, if they had a dedicated laptop, okay? There's volume purchasing available. For one of my school districts, we can take little polls through Edmodo or SurveyMonkey or through a Google form to use whatever you like. But you can poll, and we're interested in the app. We can share some information about the app, and folks can vote and let them know if it's something that, yeah, they would like. So we can see if we have the quantity of at least 20 to access the discount, which is usually 50% discount on the app with quantities of 20 or more. And one of the things that folks are really exploring is mobile device management. And there's some issues with iOS devices, as with any type of deployment like this. But you do have the Apple Configurator software to help manage and deploy apps. There are other MDM software tools available to manage and deploy apps. And yes, set up a profile, push out apps to a special education profile or different age group profile user. So there are tools. So here's where you need to make friends with your IT folks. They are your friends, whether they know it or not. We need each other. Help this. I would typically Diet Coke and cookies to my IT folks to make sure that I had any passwords I needed and that things were installed. So it is good to think about and pair up, as if you're an AT person out there especially, pair up with your IT folks and really see what your options are and really plan, talk to other school districts, and really think about how you want to deploy your apps. Okay? When I'm talking about iOS, I'm talking about the operating system for your iDevices? There's a great question that just came by. Okay. And you can have multiple accounts on a single device if you're a one-device classroom and you have some very specific apps for students. So really, go to the resources that are available to you, talk with your IT folks, talk with each other, and really figure out what makes most sense for you, for your students, for your school. Okay, it's not the same answer everywhere. I know everyone wants the magic answer, but there's certainly lots of models that we can learn from out there. The other big thing, I was teaching some brand new teachers. They're working on their master's degree in education, and they're learning about some of the technology, and they're terrified. They don't want to bring the iPad into the classroom. It will be destroyed. I suppose that's always an issue. So make sure you get the warranty on your devices. But also, there are tools. There are incredible cases. I love the Big Grips case. Is a really foamy case. You can have a stand with it. The OtterBox is pretty popular, and I've heard it's indestructible. There are incredible mounting systems. I love the folks at Modular Host just released a new kind of universal mount for tablets that's really strong but flexible, can help protect your devices for your students, can mount them to a wheelchair, can mount them to a table so that they can't be thrown across the room, okay, like any other tool that our students might be using. So there are ways to protect them. There's also great access tools. My favorite thing I got to play with recently are actual key guards. So for students with more physical challenges who might be pushing their hand across the entire iPad, if they need some support to zero in on a target, you can have custom key guards made, and I've shared a couple of those resources. LaserPix and Beyond Adaptive are both resources for making key guards to support different apps that your students might be using. It never occurred to me when I first started exploring this a year or so ago, but it makes a lot of sense to have key guards for students who might be using a specific app for the majority of the day. And the other thing that's been really exciting, and it's been a real kind of focus this year, and it's incredible what a small group of really dedicated individuals can accomplish. There's been a really small but important and vocal group about switch accessibility in the iPad. So for folks who might, have significant physical disabilities, motoric challenges, and need access to the iPad, that touchscreen isn't necessarily accessible to all, as incredible as it seems to many of us. Somebody just commented on the style and says, there are some pretty cool tools out there. So some of the cool tools that are coming out, if you want to be able to use a switch with an iPad, okay, so, everybody thinks of the little red jelly bean button switch. If your student needs to use a switch, could be any type of switch mounted wherever that needs to be mounted for a student. So you need to get your team involved, your OT, your physical therapist, your speech and language pathologist, your educators, to get involved in thinking about switches and switch site access. You have your switch, so whatever switch is that the student uses. And then you need something that speaks switch and talks to the device. So this is true on a computer, it's true on an iPad. So you need a switch interface. So the trend has really been going with Bluetooth switch interfaces, but they're finally having success with actually plugging into the iPad port too. So I shared a resource with you up there as far as links to different types of switch interfaces, as well as links to great resources for switches like AbleNet folks. They came up with a Bluetooth switch interface and also have incredible variety of switches. RJ Cooper is another resource that I posted up into your Edmodo resources. Great resource for tools for our students. The folks at Praetorian and I believe Inclusive TLC actually sells as a reseller their switch interfaces, some of the more complex, really high-powered switch interfaces, and the Techless switch as well. These are great switch interfaces. So how is something switch accessible? Okay, it either needs to be built in by the developer to be built in with switch accessibility, or it uses the kind of built-in voiceover accessibility, because the voiceover for the blind will scan through choices. So if it is developed to be accessible with voiceover, then it is going to be switch accessible. So all your folks in the AT community have been really clever and really smart, and they're making sure they either build in the accessibility or, more importantly, make sure they're accessible with VoiceOver, because Apple has definitely demonstrated its commitment to switch accessibility by building in the ability to turn the entire iPad into a switch, to use head tilt using your camera on your iPad, so you can use head tilt and have settings for left or right tilt to mean different things, or switch clicks with your iPad, and you can use these external switches, which I've been talking about, connected to your device, whether it's via Bluetooth or directly connected with a switch interface and plugged in that way. So it's an incredible field right now. A lot is changing. And please, keep up the chat. I love people sharing their additional resources. It's wonderful. Okay, so once again, either built-in switch access or built-in VoiceOver support. Okay, and I've shared some great resources for this as well. And really, with iOS 7 that was just released, it just changed everything entirely. Like it's really exciting for our students with more significant students and adults with more significant physical access needs. It's incredible. We'll take a peek. We'll take a peek at the guts of the accessibility in a minute or so. Okay. So not all switches have to be that little red switch. They could be sip and puff switches, all different types of switches. The folks at R.J. Cooper designed an incredible multi-switch tool to access the iPad as well, with kind of the 6 key things you might want to do on your iPad. So it's just really, I'm really excited about the field. Yes.
Sorry, Jennifer, I'm going to interrupt you at this point. We did have a question come in about what do you mean by a switch. Could you just give a brief explanation about about what a switch is?
I'll do a very quick one. So think of a switch. You have a light switch that turns things on and off. Think about your mouse, and more importantly, think about your mouse. And when you click your mouse, it's doing something. Your keyboard, when you click the letter Q, it's really a switch that's telling your computer to do something with that Q. So for our students, let me back up. For our students who need access to, and this is true for computers, so this is assistive technology for computers as well. Here's the little red switch at the top of the screen is a common switch that we see around for students who can't use a mouse, for students or adults who could not use a keyboard. They may need alternate access to the computer. So they might use a single switch. Maybe they can just move their thumb or tilt their head slightly or use a blink of an eye. There is a switch that can with a switch interface that can translate mouse clicks and keyboard shortcuts to do everything they need to do on the computer. So if you want to learn more about switches, I would definitely say visit ablenetinc.com is a great place to start. Okay? Then never assume too much. There's new information for everybody, so this is great. And some of the other things briefly, I mean, now people are thinking about using iPad itself. Since you have it, use it itself as an access tool for the computer. So Panther Technology does some really interesting things by turning the actual iPad itself into an alternative computer access. The folks at Attainment have created an app that can turn your iPad into a switch itself to access things. Oh, somebody just shared another great resource. Oh, great app, Moms with Apps. I love it. Another great resource for folks too. So there is so much happening in the field, and I'm trying to race through. There's so many things we could talk about. So I'm going to share a few more slides of the common questions that come up, the common things that teams at schools are thinking about. So, okay, imagine we solved all your problems. You have your devices, you have them deployed, you have them set up to make sure the right students get the right apps. You've figured out the right apps you want because you've turned to your professional learning network and you've looked through these resources and you've tried some free stuff out. So now, well, what about for the whole class? What about bringing this technology for the whole class? So common question, I guess, well, how do I project your iPad? So, because there's some great educational apps and there's some great collaborative apps that we might want to do together. So there's some really nice teacher tools like Socrative or Nearpod where you can actually poll the class and they could be engaging with you with your iPads while you display your iPad on the big screen. I'm a huge fan of projection, of books, of any study guides, of materials. I'm always projecting Kurzweil and going through social studies books and training folks on how to actually explicitly teach and learn study strategies. So you want to project. So one of the things you can do really quickly to project is buy one of those $30 little Apple 30-pin to VGA adapters. So what this does is connect your iPad to the little VGA cable that you would unplug from your computer and plug it into your iPad. The other end of the VGA cable from your computer plugs into your projector, the projector that you have with your smartboard or your Promethean device or any of your interactive whiteboards. The thing that does not happen yet, so just said interactive whiteboard, and if something has changed recently and somebody in the audience knows, let me know. Right now, it's not touch interactive if you project it, okay? So the iPad is touch interactive when it's in your hands. But when you project it, even if you're projecting it on an interactive whiteboard, it's not touch accessible. And I'm going to say yet, because I assume that it will be someday. Who knows? It could be tomorrow. But a really common question, especially if folks are really using their interactive whiteboards, you want to project. So if you have a projection system in your classroom, you can plug into it. You can go to the Apple Store or buy online or go to Amazon, and you can buy this little VGA adapter, okay?
Jennifer?
The other thing you can do if you don't have a projector, I just came across this really neat 3M mini projector tool designed just for iDevices. And I've seen it come up on Woot or on sale for under $100. It's usually between $200 or $300. But if you hang out, you can usually get it on watch for it. Put it on your watch list on Amazon. It discounts a lot. So those little 3M projectors, pretty powerful. And another way for you to project your iPod on a blank wall or on a screen in your classroom, so the whole class can get involved.
Jennifer, we have a question related to this slide.
Yep.
And sorry, I was distracted, so I'm going to just ask the question, and perhaps you know the context. That projects the iPad, but does it make the whiteboard interactive with the app?
Nope. You're just projecting. You're just projecting. Not yet. Not yet. Just because your device is what's interactive, okay? It's not going to be interactive when you project. Yet, I'm waiting for folks to figure that out.
And somebody also mentioned...
You always get that question. So yep, another question?
Well, a comment that you can also use a program called Reflector that allows not
it's like I'm coming right to that with my next slide.
Oh, great.
So, I love it, whoever's out in the audience, okay? I love the questions that are coming up. Yes, yes, yes. I knew I had the right slides up here and the right resources for you to look at, I hope. So the great thing about having that cable is that you can project your iPad. The bad thing about that cable is that you're tethered, and the cable is less than a foot long. So you're kind of stuck, and your iPad can't travel around the room so that your students can be interacting with the iPad, and it'll change things on your projection screen, just like you do when you're at your computer, okay? So there are two apps that I've used personally. I'm sure there are others. I think Doceri is another tool for this. Reflection or Reflector, I believe they've changed their name midway for some reason, and Air Server. They are apps for your computer, not for your iPad. They are apps for your computer so that you can project your iPad onto your computer. Okay? So then if your computer is plugged in to the projector, then you'll see everything that's on your computer. So it's just kind of a middleman, but you can go from iPad to your computer, and you can see everything on the screen. So these are two great apps. They're only about $15 each. I think they're $14.99, just under. They are great tools to project and not have you tethered by a dongle. I always have my little VGA dongle handy just in case something's up and things aren't connecting. All kinds of interesting things can happen in the school system, okay? So I have my dongle if I have to hardwire it in, but I love being able to use AirPlay and be able to project as well.
Jennifer?
And there's another, and this answers another, the next slide is another question. So you could have the reverse, too. We don't have time
Jennifer,
to demonstrate within session, but you could have the reverse as well. What if you want to project what's on your computer and put that on your iPad? And you can do that. One of the tools that I've used a lot is Splashtop. It's a combination. You download software to your computer and you purchase a little inexpensive app from the App Store. Yeah, somebody uses Splashtop is great. And Doceri is another one. Doceri seems affordable to me now too. So these are great tools to kind of turn your iPad into a little whiteboard as well, and pass it around and pass it around. So you can access, any of your software programs from your iPad. So it's like you're running your computer from your iPad. All it is really just mirroring its display, but then you have the touchscreen capability or any other access needs that you might need, and it moves around the class. You don't have to have kids coming up to just your computer. Somebody just said something. Somebody just said Microsoft's coming out with its own remote desktop app this month as well. I mean, it's very exciting what you can do. So usually, if you think about it, it's possible. And things that we used to say, no way, like, oh, it's not interactive when you project it. I'm telling you, the next time I deliver this, I'm crossing my fingers that it's true. And I'm just geeky enough or not geeky enough to know how they're going to figure that out or how difficult that is. But it's got to be possible.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Jennifer, Deborah wants to know if the Splashtop app is installed on both the computer and the iPad, and a couple of people have asked that question.
Yes. There are two things. You need to download the Splashtop streamer to your computer, and you get the app from the App Store. Either way you go, it's going to tell you the other kind of thing that you need to do. So in this case, both. So it's a free kind of download for the streamer for Splashtop, and then you have the Splashtop app on your desktop. On your iPad. Pardon me. So in this case, it's both. And there are probably other tools like this too. Doceri and Splashtop are the ones that keep coming up on my radar screen. And it works beautifully. I could have a student take a test using a really robust software application, but just have the iPad in front of them at their desk and not have to go to the computer. So it's kind of neat. Question is, do they need to be in the same room? They need to be in proximity, and you know what? Room means a lot of different things. I would imagine there's some issues with distance, but you know what? Who knows? I'm gonna post it out to the group if there's thoughts of there's like kind of does it need to be in the same room? I don't know how close they need to be.
Michael posted something. Can you see it, Jennifer?
Yep, I'm looking at it. Yep.
Yeah. And also, Kim would like to know if for using these apps, the apps for projecting, do they require wireless capabilities?
Yeah, they're going to be using AirPlay. And one of the big issues, a lot of the apps, and not all apps, but a lot of the apps that we use, because the iPad devices, they're really designed to take advantage of the web, of the cloud. So it's really unfortunate sometimes if we don't have Wi-Fi access within the school or some sort of access so we can get out there. So it's really worth talking with your IT folks and really figure out, what do I need to do? I had one school, brand new school, no spots. Like they couldn't use, they had iPads and couldn't use them in most classrooms. And it became a real issue, and really need to think about and budget for making that happen. And it often isn't anywhere near as expensive as people like to make it out to be, to have more access. Well, somebody that offering some more resources. Apple TV is another idea, only $100. Great, thanks, Michael. So many resources. These are great questions. I hope that some of these resources are helpful. How's our time doing, Debbie? 3 minutes. All right.
Yes, 3 minutes, Jennifer.
3 minutes. So here's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take the next kind of minute to move over, and I'm going to practice projecting my my iPad for you so you can see what it looks like a little bit. I'm going to turn on AirPlay, and I'm going to sneak over. I will talk a little bit about Kurzweil's app. So Kurzweil's Firefly, we talk about so many different apps, and the fine folks at Kurzweil and IntelliTools, Cambium Learning Technologies, have offered to host this. They are really thinking the right way. They've moved their most powerful program, Kurzweil 3000, to the iPad by creating an app for it that gives students like mobile access to all of their Kurzweil files. So using kind of cloud storage, kids can have it anywhere, can have it at home, can be hanging out with the family in the family room, don't have to be tethered to either a laptop. Can you believe we're talking about being tethered to a laptop now? Tethered to a laptop or to a desktop machine, they can have access to their stuff. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to move over. So I'm going to finish up through these slides, and if you guys want to hang with me, I'm going to move over to the iPad for a few minutes, okay? I'm going to keep up this resource because I can't encourage you enough the importance of staying connected, and I've shared lots more links for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post that QR code as well and information about your QR codes too. So here's what I'm going to do. Debbie, do I have your permission to carry on for another few minutes, and I'll show my iPad?
Absolutely. We got a little bit of a late start. And
okay.
As I mentioned, because of the overwhelming response and the number of questions that we anticipated that we would get, Jennifer will stay longer and will answer some questions. I've been keeping track of them. And we will record that. So if anybody has to leave now, because we do recognize that we expect it to end at 3, please feel free to leave, and you can listen to the rest of the webinar through the recording when we send it to you tomorrow.
Hey, and I feel great. Like we actually covered all of those resources. A little 10 minutes short of getting onto the iPad, so I apologize, folks. You should see my iPad projected now. How are we doing with that, folks?
Yes, I can see it.
Somebody just said 8,000 emails. Oh my God, I know, and that was just today, Jill. I know, somebody just said, somebody's posting. I know, it's like the money that we put into Apple, but you know what? I've never regretted any of the money I've spent on these devices. I will say that for sure. So you're looking at my iPad. So I'm using Air Server to connect my iPad, and if you swipe up on your screen, you see your control panel. This is new in version 7. Some things are really cool in version 7, and some things they seem to just change the direction of a swipe to give you the same information. But we needed to relearn a few things with getting through things on our iPads, but certainly doable. So you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, you should see it's kind of, I'm not sure how visually it looks for you guys on your monitors, but there's a little white in the center bottom of the screen. It says Jennifer Savage's MacBook Pro. That's that little icon next to it to the left is your Air Server link. Okay, so that when your iPad detects, there's a computer in the room or something it can connect to, it's gonna find it, and it'll ask you, okay, do you want to connect to Jennifer's MacBook Pro? And all I do is click the link, and in a matter of seconds, my iPad is projected to my computer, which is now projected to all of you folks via WebEx on your computers. So this is the same thing that I could do in a classroom to project my iPad to the classroom computer that is connected to the projection system, okay? So the whole class could see it. It works great for webinars, too. All right, so I'm gonna smoosh this down, okay? And they move some things around. I mean, you still have some of your tools there. What I'm going to jump through, I think you see my favorite app there, Apps Gone Free in the upper corner. I've pulled out all my apps. I don't have them organized into little folders, except for my daughter's, so you can kind of view them pretty easily for the webinar. So I'm going to jump to settings, okay? So here's what's really neat about the iDevice, and when we're thinking about special education, is the accessibility. So one thing, and I'm going to put this out to the group, one question that came up today with one of my students is, I wanted to enlarge the icons, and other than Zoom, which can be a little clunky to use, I haven't found a way to just make my icons bigger without jailbreaking and bringing in customization type hacks into my iPad. So if anybody has some ideas, that might be the next thing I'm arguing for accessibility. However, despite that, if you look at your settings, open up settings, and go to general, you just have to scroll way down to the bottom to find accessibility. But with iOS 7, look where they put it. I mean, to me, that tells me a lot that they're thinking about this really, you know, in a really meaningful way at Apple to do this. So if I could, and notice like some of your general settings, you can do things like lock your rotation so it doesn't spin around for your students. So if a app looks better in landscape mode, it stays there and it's not going to move every time you accelerate the motion on your device. So it's worth exploring your settings. I have folks do this on computers too. Go see what's under the hood and see what you can do. Little things like text size, really powerful for our parents, okay, and for ourselves, those of us getting up there. My favorite place, I'm going to click on accessibility, and here are the accessibility options. So they've even reorganized some of the accessibility options too. So here are the vision accessibility options built into the iPad. VoiceOver is really the tool for users who are blind. It made the iPhone and the iPad like the first smartphone that was really accessible for the blind. They get to have the have the iPhone and access to all of these tools. So VoiceOver is going to speak like a screen reader, speak through all of your settings, all of your buttons, all of your icons within your device. Zoom is a great feature to turn on and off to enlarge. You can invert colors. One of the main things that as I go through some of these with you, bit by bit, speak selection. Every time I'm in a school, I go to the student's iPad and I make sure that's turned on. Because anywhere you can select text on the iPad, it will speak. It's built into the operating system. So it's going to read everything that you type into Pages for an essay. It's going to read any place there is text that you can put your finger on and select. You can select that text to copy it and paste it. If you turn on Speak Selection, one of your options will be Speak. This is free and this is built in. So Speak Selection, you have a choice of voices, and you can adjust the speaking rate. You can make it faster or slower. And what was
Speak Selection reads selected content.
Okay. And you can also highlight, have words highlight as they're read. So when you're trying to support your students with building their sight vocabulary, we know that they want to be able to see those words and hear how they're supposed to sound. It's really going to not just read the whole paragraph, it's going to focus in and highlight and focus the students on each word as it's reading to help build some of their skills. So I make sure this is turned on, and it rarely is, and it's free. And so many students can benefit from it. Why not turn it on for everybody? So what's nice, and I'll jump out really quickly there, I can go to any website, and what you're seeing right now, I jump to, you're looking at your Edmodo resources that I shared with you. This is how they will look for you. I shared if not all, most of the resources as well as the PowerPoint so you can have access to everything, okay? But anywhere that I can select text because I have reading turned on, you can see that one of the choices, I can copy and paste it, I can define it, or I could speak it, so I can select whatever it is that I want it to read and press speak, and it's going to read to me.
Apple unveiled new switch control accessibility feature.
Built in. So anywhere, and in any app where you can select text, your students can have access. So I can have students now, sometimes if they need to, take a test on their iPad and have it read to them, and just fill it out in their whatever word processing the app they might be using, like Pages or something. So far, so good. 2 clicks still brings you to take a look at. 2 clicks on your home button still brings you to being able to look at all the apps that you currently have open and slide between them. Though they've changed how you close them now. To close them, now you have to swipe up to close your apps, okay? Because whether you know it or not, your apps don't close unless you actually physically close them or shut down. I'm going to go back to accessibility settings for a little bit here. So speak selection, like most important thing that I teach folks to do. And you can adjust type and text Guided access is a really nice tool for folks. This is built in. This is great when you want to lock a student into an app. So if they're using an AAC app or, a communication app and you want to keep them there and not let them explore all over the place, you can lock them in and set a passcode to keep them there. I mean, you can even set up, what parts of the app are accessible or not, too. So even within an app, you want to make sure they don't get into controls, you can block them out. So guided access is a great feature worth exploring. And the new, assistive touch, as we look at physical motor, the assistive touch is great because you can create your own kind of custom gestures. Not all students can do that little pinch, okay, or swipe. So you can set that up so that they can actually get little buttons that will mean certain gestures. So someone who's able to do the gesture, we can capture that gesture and give them a button to press rather than having to do the actual physical action. Another really neat tool for a lot of our students who might not have the fine motor control to fully take advantage of some of the gestures available with this touchscreen. But the coolest thing that we'll show really quickly is your switch control. And one thing I'm going to point you to, and I've shared resources with you, you can watch great video presentations of folks actually really using them, see real users using some of these features. So I'm just kind of giving you a taste and letting you know what's available. And I've shared some resources for you to go as deeply as you need to for your professional needs and for your students' needs, okay? You could spend a whole afternoon going through all those resources with your peers, and who knows, get PDPs or CEUs for your licensure, for your professional licensure. So switch control is kind of a neat thing, too. That this is brand new with iOS 7, which is less than a month since it's been released. So what I like about it is you can add switches. You can set it to auto scan. You can set it for step scanning. You can decide how many times it loops around. So this kind of stuff gets us OTs and AT folks really excited, working with our students with really significant physical disabilities and adults with significant physical disabilities like cerebral palsy or spinal cord injury. They can use the iPad too because of the time taken to build in these tools. Pretty amazing. And less than 6 months ago, I was in a webinar and we were imagining, oh, we just want to adjust it so that, we can change the color of the scan so that we can change our cursor color. And look what they did. They put it in. So it's pretty incredible, some of the things that are built in now for our students. So if you have your iPad, go ahead and dive into those accessibility features for your students. And I was talking about that. I should bring it up. I'm going to go back to my main page. So many other features we can talk about, but I'm going to dive into a little deeper to some of them. Let me find my app. Here's what I want, Firefly. So a great example, a lot of these assistive technology companies like Cambium are really, moving their tools and some of the necessary, really important features of their tools. Great question. Before I get too far, you must have a switch interface. You cannot just plug it. There is no port to plug a switch into your computer. There's no port to plug a switch directly into your iPad. You need to have a switch interface that kind of communicates what those switch clicks mean to the interface too. So you need a translator. You need your switch interface. Great question to bring up. So I want to make sure that's clear for folks who are really into that with me. All right. So now I'm going to jump in. So there are some great folks in the assistive technology community really thinking about switch interfaces for the iPad and bringing their apps into an accessible version for devices. And, Kurzweil is no exception. So the first tool that they put out there is a little kind of extension of their full Kurzweil 3000 product. So Kurzweil 3000 with Firefly, their web license allows you to have the full, all the bells and whistles of Kurzweil, as well as a web-based application that gives you many of the tools available within the full version of Kurzweil, as well as a little kind of mini Kurzweil application on the iPad called Firefly. It lets you log in with the same username and password and gives you access to all of your books and all of your files that you have in Kurzweil. It helps if my poor internet connection, I think, is slowing down. I don't blame Kurzweil for this. I blame my own. Maybe if it gets too slow, if my internet connection is too slow, I might wrap up with some other things. I don't want to torture folks with Firefly. They know they can review some
this might be a
webinars
good time.
and things that are really focused on this app. But it's really exciting that Kurzweil is going this way. I really look forward to seeing where they go with it. Debbie, did you have a thought?
I did. I just wanted to let everybody know that there was a lot of interest in Firefly through the comments and questions when you registered, and I wanted to make sure that you all understood that in order to have access to Firefly, you need to be using Kurzweil 3000 with the web license version. Because Firefly does access documents in the cloud, you do have to have access through Kurzweil 3000 to the Internet. So that's why you need the web license version. And when you buy the web license version, you also get the free Firefly iPad app, and you can access Firefly by Kurzweil on any computer through a web browser. So I just wanted to reiterate that you do need to have the web license version. If you don't know if you have the web license version, or if you currently have another version of Kurzweil 3000 and are interested in upgrading, when I send the email to you tomorrow, there will be resources available to you so that you can contact our sales department to get more information about that.
Yeah, and what's great is, I mean, folks I love that the buzz is starting to talk about Firefly. Firefly right now is a reader, okay? But once again, it's a matter of now. Who knows what it will be? It doesn't have some of the test-taking features and writing features that you might love, so you still certainly have the full version of Kurzweil, but I think it's a matter of yet. Like, when is it going to happen? It's amazing how fast this type of technology moves. So it's kind of exciting to see what folks are doing. So it's a perfect little applet to get students access to their stuff. So we'll see. One of the other things I've used. Somebody just asked a great question. How am I getting to the screen? 2 clicks on your home screen will pull up all of the apps you have open so you can move between them. I hope that helps. So I can jump, and this is probably where we start wrapping up a little bit too. So I can jump to, let's see if this is behaving. So I just opened something called Enigma. It's a QR code reader. You can see my Steve Jobs messy desk. So wherever you see one, so it's free. So wherever you see a QR code, it'll read it. So I quickly read it, and it said, well, this is what you can do with it. QR codes basically are just pointing you someplace with a point on the Internet. So that QR code embedded, it's like a barcode like you have at the grocery store, except it's multidimensional, okay? So I can jump in and create a QR code. You can go to a free QR code creator called qrstuff.com, and other resources I put for you. But this is bringing me to my Edmodo resource. So anytime you see one of those QR codes, it's really going to likely bring you to some sort of point for more information. And it's a really quick way to help support kids, too. Sometimes I've seen this printed out. I'm not a big fan of worksheets, but we still worksheet our kids a lot. So when we use worksheets, what if you printed out a little QR code on their worksheet or embedded it in a book and let them use bring their own device, use their device. If it's not at school, maybe it's at home. They can take a little picture and boom, jump to a video, jump to an activity, jump to a shared Google Doc that they're going to collaborate with their friends. Like, so much you can do with those QR codes. So I've shared some great resources for using QR codes as well, and I use that resource for you. I embedded it into my PowerPoint, so you can take a picture of it with your QR reader, free QR reader, and have access to everything with just a click of your button. So you have access to all of those resources, and there's so many more. There's so many great folks in the audience. If you have other resources that we think we should include, the nice thing about making your resources digital and sharing them in the cloud. I chose to use Edmodo because I use that in higher ed as well as K through 12 as a learning management system. It's a great tool, so I can put them all there, and I can share the link with this folder, and you have access to all those resources. And because it's online, if something else comes up and somebody has a request, I can add it in, and it's there for everyone with the same link. Great.
All right, Jennifer. We have a little more time, and so I'd like to just get to some of the other questions that were asked. Somebody would like to know the name of the QR code creator.
So you have choices. So depending on what your resources is, I often create my QR codes on my actual computer, necessary. I can go to my computer and I go to qrstuff.com. Why don't I do this? I'm gonna stop sharing my little iPad for a second. Okay. So I just turned off the airplane and I'm back to the iPad. So I use Crafter and Enigma are apps that you can download. There's a cost to them. Gosh, I'm sure it's under $10 though, which would allow you to create. So if you get the pro version, it means you could create as well as read them. If you want to just read, you can download a free version, which is great to use with students, okay? So you might have the pro version and all your students have a free version. As they're going around the field and doing a lab experiment, they can have their iPads and they can take video and they can grab that QR code to do whatever the next steps you have for their assignment or get further support. So that's one of the places I go, qrstuff.com. There are many others. Just these happen to be the one that's easy for me to remember to go to.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Somebody did ask that we show what Kurzweil has done in relation to iOS apps, and I think that this is for you, Lyle, and I think that at this point in the webinar, that I think that we'll pass on that for now, because what I'm going to do is I will have somebody contact Lyle to give a personal demonstration of what Firefly can do, unless, Jennifer, you think that you can show real quickly, but we do have some other questions, and we do need to get people off the phones so they can go. So, Lyle, we will have somebody from our sales department contact you right away to do that. Now, somebody,
I'll pull it
Joanna,
up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, Lyle, the other thing is that Firefly is Kurzweil's app, okay? So, So it's going to only open up Kurzweil files or PDFs that you've converted with your full version of Kurzweil. So and Kurzweil can pretty much, like Pac-Man, eat up any type of digital or paper file you have and make it digital and make it accessible and have it read, okay? So the folks at Kurzweil can certainly help you with figuring out, and there's lots of resources. There's a great Getting Started guide to help you figure that out too, how to get the content in. Once it's in, when you're in Firefly, you have access to your folder. So we use the Universal Library with Kurzweil and Cloud Storage, so you can quickly jump to your Universal. It'll show you all the folders you have access to in your Universal Library, if that helps. So I can jump to the sample. So right now, Firefly is a reader. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles you may have grown to love with your full version of Kurzweil, but I say that's a matter of time. But I can access my files. In this case, I'm going to grab some of the great files from those folks at Reading A to Z. And I can have basic access to reading and basic access options for my reader, how fast, and kind of highlighting for my school. So for students who don't need access to the full version of Kurzweil and just need access to the reading, Kurzweil's there. Okay? And you can swipe through your pages as well within Firefly, so it takes advantage of some of the built-in features within the iOS system too. So it's going to give you basic reading capability, but access to all of your stuff that you're using with Kurzweil. I love the mobility of it. That help, Debbie? Quick demo. And you still have, like I said, you have basic options for reading, but right now, Kurzweil Firefly app is a great reader for all of your Kurzweil library. Other questions come up I should take a look at? Oh, great. Somebody just had a question about accessories for the iPad. There's a great resource here. So I'm going to pull this down now. Maybe that'll be the last little resource that we share. Let's take a look. There are some great resources. OTs with apps is a great resource. There are some pretty amazing Pinterest pages coming up. I think Lysender is the name of one of them. One of the resources I shared with you for looking at different types of accessories. I love it. The Cosmonaut Styles is getting a lot of support. The Big Grips Case. So yeah, there's some great resources. And yeah, RJ Cooper, Enabling Devices. These are all great resources to get those types of tools.
Okay. And I just wanted to say a message to Scott. I'm not sure if he's still on the line, but he says he's a special educator and he's interested a lot in assistive technology. And what does he need to do to become one? Jennifer, I'm going to send him to you. I think that you might be able to answer his questions. So I just want to let you know.
Listserv and find out more. I mean, part of it is, some of us are self-taught. Some of us go to get, further professional development or degrees in the area. There are a lot of options out there. And certainly joining Quiet and the Quiet Listserv is a great resource for learning more about that too.
And Elaine asks if you can alter the text size and wrap so the user doesn't have to scroll in Firefly. I know you can alter the text size, but I'm not sure about
You still have your kind of pinch controls as well within the app too that you have built into the iOS.
And Jennifer, I'm going to do a very quick scan. We've missed some questions. Some people did ask about, when they registered, did ask about an Android app, and we, at this point, do not have an app for the Android. Just wanted to address that.
I see a question came up about Firefly different from Read2Go. Read2Go is only going to pull your files directly from Bookshare, which is fantastic. Bookshare is a great tool. With Kurzweil, if you have Kurzweil and you have access to your Bookshare files, you can bring all your Bookshare files into Kurzweil, and you can access your Bookshare files via Kurzweil's free app too. So as long as you bring your Bookshare files and put them into the Universal Library, you can have access to them on Kurzweil's Firefly app.
Okay. Jennifer, several people have come in. They also would like information about education for assistive technology, so I will send them to you. And I'm just, again, doing a very quick scan just to make sure we didn't miss something. There were a lot of questions that came in. So we're going to wrap up now because we do need to end this. People do have to get back to their day.
That's great. I promised to stay another half hour, and I guess we needed it. You folks are great. I know it's a lot of information. I hope everybody learned a little bit something new for thinking about using iPads, and I really hope there was resources that might be helpful for everyone. I really appreciate the feedback and support and the sharing that happened in the chat as well. So certainly take advantage of having access to these resources and start exploring them on your own. I'm sure you'll find your favorites and more. Certainly, hopefully it was comprehensive, but not all-inclusive, that's for sure. There's so much out there. But hopefully you found this helpful, everyone. And please feel free to contact me or contact me through Debbie and the folks at Kurzweil. I hope this was helpful. You guys were great.
And I just want to end, again, to say thank you very much. This was a bit of a challenge because of the number of people on the webinar, but we love it. And so I know we didn't answer everybody's questions, but when you receive an email from me tomorrow, it will contain a link to the recording as well as to all the resources that Jennifer outlined and a link to download her presentation from Edmodo in case you didn't have a chance to do that yet. So thank you very much, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thank you, Jennifer. As always, it was great. Jean, I just saw your request for an attendance certificate. Yes, I can send you one. And you're welcome, everybody. Thank you for your thank yous. It was our pleasure. And I see some requests for certificates. I will follow up with those. Give me a few days on that, because that is a bit of a manual process. And sometimes I'm not as quick to follow up with that. So give me a day or two. Kimberly, no, I'm just making a record of your request for a certificate, so I will take care of that here. You don't need to send me an email, although I'd love to hear from you. And I'm recording everybody's requests. I can't respond to them individually. If I miss you, if you don't get the certificate within a week, please send an email to me and remind me that you asked for one. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat window. Okay, I'm getting your request. Now, these are certificates of participation. It is not a CEU, just to clarify that. All right, I'll stay on for one more minute for any stragglers for certificates of participation. Okay, Lori, I got yours, and Tracy, good, thank you. All right, Jennifer, I'm going to stop sharing with you, so I'll take over presenter duties. You can go and relax. Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. This was great.